pick up today is with a quote that we talked about on Thursday last week. Socrates, the famous ancient Greek philosopher, one of his most famous lines, "The unexamined life is not worth living." The unexamined life is not worth living. We talked about how critical self-reflection, the willingness to be skeptical about all things that you think about yourself, that you think about your culture, is a healthy instinct. I want to go forward and offer a quote that puts a slightly different spin on it from William Sloane Coffin Jr. If you don't know the name, William Sloane Coffin Jr. was a well-known minister and political activist, 1950s, 60s into the 70s, well-known in the civil rights and the movement against the Vietnam War. William Sloane Coffin Jr. in one of his books said, "Socrates had it wrong. It is not the unexamined, but finally the uncommitted life that is not worth living." So Coffin is, of course, not suggesting we should never be self-critical, never be skeptical. He's saying in the end, being skeptical, being critical, engaging in analysis and examination is all well and good, but in the end what really matters is your commitment, your willingness to take action on what you have learned about the world, that simply philosophizing is inadequate, according to Coffin. The task is not simply, to quote another famous philosopher, to understand the world. The task is to change it, to engage in activities, to make commitments that lead to the positive change you believe is necessary in the world. And we talked about that as well last week. So, in a sense, just concluding last week, what I want to leave you with are two questions that I think are crucial for those of us concerned about journalism. First one, what is your connection to the pain of the world? There is great suffering in this world. We talked briefly about that. We listened to that Michael Franti song that expressed that. As a journalist, you can ask these questions about your place in the world as a human being, of course, but as a journalist, what is your connection to that pain? And the second question recognizes that that pain doesn't come down from the sky. It's produced by human systems, that much of the pain of the world is the direct results of the way we organize ourselves in this world. There are some aspects of being human that inevitably cause pain: death, disease, disappointment. Nobody escapes that in any society. But much of the pain of the world is the product of the distribution of power and wealth. So the first question, what is your connection to the pain of the world? How do you relate to that? Second question leads, I think, to the second question, what is your relationship to power? The pain of the world flows out of systems. Those systems are structured by a certain arrangement of power. Traditionally, journalism has presented itself as a profession that can articulate some of that pain, and a profession that can challenge that power. Journalists don't always make good on that, but that is at the core of journalism historically in the modern age, that journalists are there to articulate the pain, the suffering of the least among us, those who cannot often speak for themselves. But that articulating that pain is not enough, because that pain is produced by systems of power, and therefore challenging that power is important as well. And those are questions I think would be useful to just let linger in the back of your mind throughout the semester and throughout the rest of your life. Questions that still kind of haunt me most every day. So, what I thought I would do to bring to I've sort of started enjoying reading poetry these days, though I'm not very good at it. So, I'm going to read actually a couple of poems today, but I want to read a poem that I think captures some of this. I especially was thinking about this after some conversations I had with some of you individually. I want to read a poem from one of the most famous poets of South Asia, Faiz Ahmed Faiz. Some of you may know his work. He is one of the greatest Urdu poets. Urdu is the language of Pakistan. He was born in 1911 in Lahore, in what is now Pakistan. Of course, in 1911, Lahore was not in Pakistan, was it? Why in 1911 was Lahore not in Pakistan? Because Pakistan didn't exist. It wasn't founded until the partition of what had been British-ruled India. In 1947, India and Pakistan split. That's what they call the partition. So he was born in British-occupied India and lived his life till 1984, then at the end of his life in Pakistan. He was not only a great writer, he was also a committed political figure, spent time in prison for his political activities. The poem I want to read, and it's in translation, I'm not going to read the Urdu to you, because I don't speak Urdu, and most of you don't either. It's called Don't Ask Me for That Love Again. And my friends who know and love Urdu poetry tell me that English translations never quite cut it. So some of the lyricism is gone, but bear with me here. I think this poem speaks to those questions. Don't ask me for that love again. That which then was ours, my love, don't ask me for that love again. The world then was gold, burnished with light, and only because of you. That's what I had believed. How could one weep for sorrows other than yours? How could one have any sorrow but the one you gave? So, what were these protests, these rumors of injustice? A glimpse of your face was evidence of springtime. The sky, wherever I looked, was nothing but your eyes. If you'd fall into my arms, fate would be helpless. All this I'd thought, all this I'd believed. But there were other sorrows, comforts other than love. The rich had cast their spell on history. Dark centuries had been embroidered on brocades and silks. Bitter threads begun to unravel before me. As I went into the alleys and in the open market, saw bodies plastered with ash, bathed in blood. I saw them sold and bought again and again. This too deserves attention. I can't help but look back when I return from those alleys. What should one do? And you are still so ravishing, what should I do? There are other sorrows in this world, comforts other than love. Don't ask me, my love, for that love again. So, the poem, I think, speaks specifically to the position of being young, and the joy and the excitement of love, and not just love in the romantic and personal sense, but all sorts of ways that the world opens up. And Fayez is saying that is part of life, but then there is this other, the sorrow, the pain. And once one is open to that, it's hard to stay encapsulated in that sort of naive conception of the world that's defined only by your love, your passion, your excitement. And I think that poem speaks to this question about these choices, our relationship to the pain of the world, and inevitably our relationship then to power. In Fayez's own life, he opened himself up to that pain, which meant he challenged power, which meant he spent some time in jail, among other things. But those are the questions that really, I think, matter. You may be asking yourself, oh Lord, this is a journalism class and I got some half-crazed middle-aged white boy from North Dakota reading South Asian poetry to me about love. What the hell is going on around here? But I do think these are questions that are very crucial to how we understand what it means to be a journalist. And of course, beyond that, what it means to be a person. So those are my concluding thoughts to the material we talked about last week. Some things for you to ponder.